Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. The latest version of our Meet a Data Scientist lecture. My name is Ken Goodman. I direct iDisc Center for a program in Data Ethics and Society, the University of Miami Ethics Programs, and the Institute for Bioethics and Health Policy. It is my privilege and pleasure to be your guide through today's session with one of our colleagues, as you can see from the notice. Kim Grinfeder, I apologize, is an associate professor in the School of Communication, where he directs the interactive media program. His work explores all kinds of new media technology, including storytelling, interactive installations, user interface design, and emerging technologies, including XR, about which you are going to hear more from Professor Grinfeder. I think I'm going to shut up and pass the baton to you, Kim. We're here to help move things along. Questions can be put in chat, and after you finish, we'll be able to have a roundtable discussion about your presentation. With that, Professor Grinfeder, the floor is yours.
Hello, and thanks for having me today. You know, when I signed up for this about 6 months ago, I had no idea that Mark Zuckerberg was going to change the name of his company today and have this big event and kind of explain that Facebook is no longer Facebook. It's going to go and become a VR first company. So the competition is tough, and I'm going to do my best to kind of match up. But there's a lot of things that happen today in the VR world if you're following it. But my talk today is a little bit more down to earth. And it's called XR from Theory to Reality. And the reason I decided to call my talk this, because a lot of people kind of speculate that the metaverse and XR and VR and all these things are things for the future, but they're happening, and it's good enough to do a lot of things, and it's affecting a lot of people, and it's opening up a lot of possibilities. And I really wanted to talk a little about that. So my name is Kim Grinfeder. I'm an associate professor at the School of Communication here at the University of Miami. I also lead the University of Miami UMXR Initiative. I'm the director for creative computing at iDisc, and I also chair the Department of Interactive Media. So I work with different technologies to figure out ways that people can connect and communicate. I'm an early adopter of the internet. I started in 1995. I started my first company, which didn't go so well. But then I joined the .com boom, and it was really exciting time to be in that field. But I was always excited about what's next and how that's going to affect people. And I really believe that VR and XR are really going to be the next computational platform and media platform. I don't only do VR. There are a few other projects I wanted to show and talk a little bit about my work. This is DocGen. This happened at the time that, hold on, I just need to fix the screen here. This happened at the time that we really wanted to everybody was talking about bias in algorithms and that it was impossible to take out. But I also realized that we have bias when a film editor edits its video, or when a news editor edits the homepage of a newspaper. So I kind of wanted to create an algorithm and figure out a way to create one that would remove bias. So what we did is a fairly simple experiment. I had a colleague of mine who was filming a documentary on gentrification in Lisbon. And what we did is we took all his interview clips and all his B-roll, and we added a ton of metadata to that. If you were pro-developer, if you were a resident, what type of topics you were talking about, and we ranked everything, and we threw that all into a database, and we allowed people to say, I want to listen about affordable housing and rentals, and you click generate, and it would give you views from people from the government, residents, and the developers, and kind of give you a balanced view of those. And it worked remarkably well. You really kind of got these 5-minute clips that gave you a holistic kind of, gave you a lot of information from these topics from all sides, and they were quite good. I don't want to kind of say could replace an editor, because there's some art to documentary editing, but the information was fairly good. Art is something that I hold close to my heart as well, especially computational art. This here is The Ghost, the Sphinx, and the Thief. It was an immersive installation that I created in 2019. And we went and we filmed a dance group in the Everglades, and it follows the story of the ghost orchid, the Sphinx moss, and the thief, which is a very famous Florida story. And we recreated that in the Everglades. The audience interacts with the piece by hitting a drum, which alters and coordinates the dancers as you move, as you kind of hit the drum. So I wanted to show a small piece over here. Oops, it's not what I wanted to do. Is it full screen for you? So the drum had a microcontroller that controlled the entire piece that was done in open processing, open frameworks, sorry. This piece was a collaboration between a local artist, Juan Carlos Aldivar, Liz Miller, who's a professor at Concordia, and Zevin Rodriguez, who is faculty here at UM. Nope, this is not what I want. Okay, Swampscapes was one of my favorite pieces. This is an immersive documentary, VR documentary that takes you through the remote regions of the Everglades. It started off as a project where we really wanted to kind of take kids with disabilities and inner city kids to the Everglades and show them areas where they really couldn't access, take them on an airboat ride, and take them through the Fakahashi Strand, which is deep into the Everglade. And what it evolved into was a full curriculum on swamp literacy. A lot of people got involved in this, and it talked about the quality of water, it talked about a bunch of things, and a lot of science teachers also got involved. And we ended up writing a curriculum for middle school. And the day that this won a bunch of awards and film festivals, we were really excited. But for me, the best day was this day that we brought it to Carver Middle School, and we showed all the students for the first time. We wanted to test our product with the students and see how they would react. So we took 85 science students, and one after the other, we kind of showed them the film, and this was their reaction.
How many victims to the Everglades? Few of you.
This is a video that we shot some of the deepest parts of the Everglades. And these are scientists that are evolving to deal with this lack of habitat. To point and to press play, you're just gonna press this button, and then you're gonna use this button to choose.
That was so cool. Cool. It was like you can see everything from like a different perspective. It was interesting how you could see everything and like the people's point of views that they've lived there for so long.
I thought it was really funny when the guy was fishing and then I see an alligator or crocodile behind me.
When we were calling the alligator, I was like, what's happening? And then I look over here and the alligator's coming. I'm like, oh! And he was so close. Yeah, it was cool.
An amazing experience. I would love to do that again.
You guys like it? Yeah! Awesome. Right, what was your favorite part?
The boat ride. Actually, the boat ride.
So this was really cool, just a validating experience to be able to see our target audience really enjoying our work. We also did a 2D version because I do recognize that VR is really an elitist kind of medium right now at the moment. Headsets are fairly expensive, not everybody has it. So we really wanted to offer a second version for this for people who don't have the equipment. But nonetheless, we had about 3,000 students to date use the Swampscapes curriculum. We had an entire school district in Nebraska adopt it, which was really cool because Nebraska swamps, but we followed the national science standards, and so it fit into the curriculum across the country. So it was really great. We did a presentation at by Southwest EDU, which also worked with a bunch of teachers to kind of help define this curriculum. So it was really a collaborative process. Know Your Grove is another project that I recently did. This was done with the Richter Library and part of the CREATE grant here at the University of Miami. So this came out in the middle of COVID, and it was great because it gave people something to do. It is a locative media project. It's an augmented bike tour of Coconut Grove. I live in Coconut Grove. I've been there, a resident there for a long time, and I like to walk. I like to take these long walks across the neighborhood, and I always wondered what some of these places were. So I worked with some local historians and Margaret Cardillo, who was also a School of Communication faculty here, who collaborated with me. And we created Know Your Grove. And it's this app that allows you to bike ride or walk. And some people cheat and go by car to different locations across Coconut Grove. And only by going to those places, you can unlock the medium. And it's really cool because it's gamified in a way. It shows you how many places you have to go to, how many places are still you went to. There's about 80 locations, so there's quite a bit in Coconut Grove, and you can only unlock them when you get to the actual spot and find out about that space. And there's some really hidden, interesting hidden gems in all of this. Coconut Grove, it was also a good opportunity to talk about some important topics like segregation and gentrification, which are, anyone who lives in the Grove knows that these are big topics for the Grove. Recently, I started collaborating with Dr. Barry Eisenberg and Jeff Groom from the School of Nursing. And we wanted to work a little bit more with healthcare training and simulation. This is something that very early on in iDisk, we kind of identified as a possibility for VR, and I wanted to have an experiment. The other thing that I wanted to do is collaborate, find out ways to kind of engage students in some of this work. So this project that you're going to see now was mainly done by students in architecture, in interactive media, and it was really a small team that kind of worked and did something together. So this is a project training medical students in cardiac examination skills. I'm going to have to move you because this is on the other side. 1 second.
We are now going to examine a patient with classic mitral regurgitation.
The pertinent features of the patient history include the following. He had rheumatic fever as a child with a heart murmur since then.
We examine him and find no other abnormality, but let us listen to his heart sounds. Place the stethoscope at every auscultation zone to diagnose murmur. To time the heart sounds, place your fingers on the patient's carotids. You can feel the pulse synchronized with heartbeat.
So this was the haptic feedback from the controller.
With radiation of the murmur toward the axilla, the murmur is high in frequency, primarily because blood is flowing from the high-pressure left ventricle to the low-pressure left atrium.
So I'm gonna stop right here because this is a fairly long video, but it does offer some. It shows some affordances that we offer in VR. First of all, haptic feedback. We could get the heartbeat with the controllers, and we could really recreate the environment. The architecture student really created the entire hospital from scratch. And we included things like televisions that would be distractions, nursing, the sounds of nurses. These were removed for the video because they are kind of annoying and they're meant as a distraction. But the entire hospital is alive when you go into this VR simulation, and it's quite exciting. So XR is really an interdisciplinary endeavor. You really need a lot of people to work coming in from different angles. It's not one of those things that one person can do everything. There's no way that happens. And for this team to happen, for this project to happen, we had 2 doctors, one project manager, which was myself, one designer, which was a student from interactive media, one architect who was a student from architecture, one developer who was a recent grad from interactive media program, 3 usability experts. We ran through 2 usability tests. One was with 2 graduates from interactive media, 2 graduate students from interactive media, and then the second version was one undergrad from computer science who did a heuristic review of the project. the lucky thing and what really helped us move along with this product and what was attractive about it is that all the training modules were already provided by the Gordon Center. They had everything done as far as content. So it was really kind of this opportunity to transport the modules from that were existing into a VR environment and just kind of leverage the affordances. So we can bring in people with different ethnicities. We can have the noise, as I mentioned. So it was really kind of an exciting project for all of us. The hospital was entirely ADA compliance, even though it was only in VR. That was something that the doctors felt was important. So, and in the end it was, because it really kind of made it look like a real hospital with no tight spaces and in large places. So it was very exciting. So why now? Why VR all of a sudden now is having its moment now? Well, VR has been around for a long time. It was first mentioned in the 1950s, and the technology has finally caught up. This is the HTC Flow headset, and it's a headset meant for relaxation and meditation. So we're getting these technologies that not only have arrived to spot, but they're also kind of being used for different things. And it's good enough for pretty much, for creating the illusion that we're somewhere else. So why is VR so exciting? Well, our human brains were wired to trust sight, and VR can hack sight. And this can affect other senses. When we're doing VR, we're completely immersed in VR. And it's not like another medium where we see the separation between you and the screen. This doesn't happen in VR. You really feel like you're somewhere else. And anyone who's tried on VR for a significant period of time, whenever you take off those headsets, you get that moment of like, whoa, where am I? And that's really because you're being teleported from one spot to the next. Some really exciting stuff is getting done with VR. So in pain reduction, for example, what happens is that one second. I'm having an issue here with my computer. Give me one straight minute. Okay. So VR really affords us presence. And what happens is that we can, the VR takes over our conscious attention and allows us to focus away from pain. So several experiments have been done in pain reductions, and it's shown some positive results. Also, we see that VR is being used in virtual reality exposure therapy. This is a great project from USC called Brave Mind, where they're treating soldiers with PTSD. This is a project from one of our own faculty. We can visit places. It's also great for cultural preservation, and it's being used in the humanities quite a bit. This is by Dr. Karen Matthews. She's a professor of art history here at the University of Miami. She was one of the first recipients for the UMXR Grants, and she, together with IDIS, what they did is they recreated La Merced Chapel using photogrammetry, and they created an interactive piece with this. So,
Scanning your surroundings. Look around you and find an open space or a cleared surface to place the model. And
Archangel on the right side highlights the holiness of the scene and Rose's sanctity as a member of the heavenly realm. The focus of the painting is the interaction and relationship between Rose of Lima and the infant Christ.
So this ability to recreate places and visit places at a later date is something that offers a great affordance in VR. And we can, Professor Matthews, for example, is using this in her classes. She's also, this is a Magic Leap project. She's also moving it to some other platforms that are cheaper, so she can get it into classrooms as well.
Scanning your surroundings.
There you go. So VR is like an experiential medium. Unlike anything that we've had before, we're not separated from the story. We are the camera, it's our perspective. And this allows us to kind of walk in somebody else's shoes and see what other people are seeing. And it's a very different form of narrative. It allows us to have empathy towards our subjects because we go through that experience. Here, on the right, we have Cloud Over Sidra, which is a very famous VR project. It's a 360 film that follows a young refugee, young girl in a refugee camp in Syria. And this was used by the UN to raise funds. And it's a fantastic experience because she guides you through the refugee camp and she plays soccer, she goes to the gym, she goes to school. And in the end, you feel that this refugee from Syria is not so different than you are. And it helps you create empathy. This project raised $40 million for the UN in a fundraiser where they showed this. Book of Distance is a more modern version of the narrative. It shows a Japanese family that emigrated to Canada and lost everything in the 1940s during the Second World War. I find it's a fantastic form of narrative because even though they lost everything in the Second World War, it shows how they rebuilt everything together. And you have to help this family rebuild everything that they've lost. And you participate in their experience. So their experience becomes your experience. Embodiment allows you to kind of put yourself in somebody else's body and take advantage of our entire body movement. It's not like a video game where you stand with the controllers and you just have those two buttons and you're just moving your thumb. In VR, you move your entire body. And there's something to be said about that and how we learn and how we move and how we feel. It's a lot freer for the medium. But it also allows us to put ourselves in somebody else's body or see something from somebody else's perspective. Research done in a university in Barcelona shows that participants who had an avatar with dark skin reduced their racial bias for about a week after the experiment. These are firefighters. I'm working on a project this summer with firefighters to basically show what it's like to be a victim when the firefighters are moving, so that the firefighters can understand what it feels like when they're being transported or when they're in a car and it's getting sawed up. So we can kind of understand, create empathy, and so that the firefighters understand that point of view as well. So this is a data science project and a data science presentation. And I thought I might include some slides about data. So one of the things that really worries me about XR is the amount of data that we can collect. It's unprecedented and it's a lot of biometric. We're basically strapping a device on our head and it can collect a lot of information that, unlike any device that we've had before, media device that we've had before. So for example, this here is the HP Reverb G2 Omnicept edition. This was released this year. And it offers a bunch of data tracking devices, eye tracking, pupillometry, lower face camera, so it can detect our mouth and their muscles, heart rates, pulse rate variability, muscle movements, EEG compatible. It also has an SDK that includes an Inference Engine, which is an AI engine that measures cognitive load. And this offers some incredible possibilities. And when it comes to teaching and learning and storytelling, we can have content that reacts to us, and with all this biometric technologies. If you think about it, the best storytellers or DJs, they actually react to the audience. They can tell, they know when the audience is not paying attention or they're not dancing enough, and they change their music, or they change their story, or they change their tone of voice. And with this gathering of biometric data, the possibilities for storytelling are great, but also for learning. If we're measuring cognitive attention, the learning techniques can change as we move along, and based on these data points. So Kent Bai from Voices of VR says the ultimate potential is the human experience for VR, and I really believe that, because we can replicate these experiences in a controlled environment, and this is where we're going to. At some point, it's going to get really scary when, right now we know it's an illusion. We put on our headsets, we know we're not in this space. There's a spot behind our brain that says we're not in this space. But I wonder if at some point it's going to get good enough where we forget that we're in VR, and that we're going to have to forget that we're going to have to remind ourselves to take off the headset, because it's going to get the quality of the graphics and the immersion is going to get really good. So, ethical considerations. These are something big, especially with Mark Zuckerberg right now, announcing that they're going to be a metaverse first company. I know that they're talking about this, but who owns this biometric data? I think it's time to start talking about neuro rights. Who's going to store this data? How will it be used? Ownership and accessibility. There's so much that, this is a brave new world. It's kind of like what I felt when the internet got started. We had this idea that it was going to connect people and everybody was going to have a voice in the internet, and this was going to be great. And now I'm not so sure anymore, because of several reasons. And we're going through this cycle again. And this is a time that we need to get ahead of the curve and start talking about these things ahead of time, while we still have time. So what's coming up as far as projects? I'm working on a project right now called Paddling Through Mangroves. It's going to be released in 2022. It's an immersive narrative that explores the importance of mangroves in an ecosystem, but it also shows, envisions living with urban ecosystems that incorporate nature with them. How are we going to live with water? What will Miami look like? I think that VR has this unique capability of kind of showing people what it might look like to live with climate change, and how cities are going to transform themselves. And if we show them the right things, then they might move in the right direction. Sci-fi has this unique ability of kind of steering all of humanity. This is well known. Ready Player One influenced VR quite a bit. I think that immersive experiences can show people what a future can look like. I'm not saying that we shouldn't start changing our habits, but I think at this point, what would a city look like with water everywhere? And mangroves are certainly going to be a part of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I'm doing at with some of my colleagues. The UMXR Initiative is an interdisciplinary community of faculty, researchers, students, and staff. And we have a common interest of using XR technologies to pursue innovative solutions in our field or in their fields. We give out small grants every year. This year, we're going through our third round of grants to provide financial support for faculty who kind of want to create prototypes and have ideas in their field that could affect their field using XR. We also have a student XR competition, which is fantastic. We give $1,000 to student teams to build immersive application, and they have been coming up with some really great ideas. And this happens every semester. So it has a quicker turnaround. So here are some of the faculty grantees and what they've been working on. So we've been teaching ophthalmoscopy using virtual and augmented reality, stress management for cancer-related distress. Dr. Chuan is creating a framework for creating smart assistants and mixed reality training apps. But what's amazing is really that we've had faculty from every single school working on this, and several departments, and really some things that we haven't expected, interactive operas, and a lot of obviously medical and health related devices. The students are also coming with some exciting projects. Aiden, for example, is working on a room designer. He's an audio engineer, and he wants to be able to place sound sources around his room and test how they sound before actually having to move the physical devices there. So he's creating a virtual reality for that. Bingjing Mao, she's a student in the School of Communication that is creating a game called Saving the Raccoon, and it's motivating people to recycle more. Beric Basser is really an engineering student who's creating a live translation where you put on HoloLens glasses and you'll see you'll see captions for real life. So some really exciting projects are coming from the students as well. I also work with iDisc as a director for creative computing, and we work with immersive media. We collaborate with many people, and we're hoping to extend these collaborations even more. So we obviously work with immersive media. We want to study creativity, machine learning, and artificial intelligence used in the arts, humanities, and communication, and human-computer interaction. I also wanted to mention that the university, as of last week, is a member of the VR/AR Association. So that means that everyone associated with the university is also automatically a member. They have a lot of events, training, job boards. So there's really a large community, a global community of VR enthusiasts, and a lot of interesting things happening over there. They have their global summit every year. And I highly encourage you to get involved with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. By the way, I wrote down a number of things, but swamp literacy has got to be the phrase of the week. That was new to me. And if you're in South Florida, it's a real opportunity to look at the educational tools that we have here to provide just that, especially in the current context. So that was really exciting and interesting. The floor is open for questions and an exchange. The chance to meet a data scientist also includes the chance to ask him and her questions. Otherwise, you have to listen to my questions. Well, let me ask you, just because it is so timely. I don't know much about business, but if Facebook is going to evolve into a VR company, what does that mean for the research and educational potential of AR, VR, and XR?
I think it's more relevant than ever. Facebook has this motto of, or actually Zuckerberg does, move fast and break things. And I think that we have to be really worried about VR, because it is something that we feel personally. It's more of especially when it comes to avatars. I know a lot of their research has been around creating. I haven't followed the new Facebook, so I don't really know what they're announcing today. I was preparing for this presentation, but I know a lot of the things are social VR, and you put yourself in a really vulnerable space when you're out there in these spaces. And I worry about what happens when somebody gets harassed in VR. Is this something that they're going to take with them? I know that social media in itself is not a great place if you're not in a good space to be, because people do harass you there. But if your avatar gets harassed, what does that mean? I mean, there's so many research questions. This is such a new technology. It moved a lot faster than the internet has. And I think there are going to be consequences. And for us, we have to research these questions. We have to make sure that we understand it as quickly as possible.
In which case, congratulations to you for thinking about them at the outset. Usually we start worrying about ethical, legal, and social issues after we've got a problem. What you seem to be suggesting is we have an opportunity now to explore them at the very beginning. Other questions? I see a number of colleagues from the Miller School working with the Gordon Center and Harvey and Dr. Eisenberg and his colleagues. There's a great opportunity. I've seen people who have done research, and as you know this, I'm sure, Kim, there's literature showing that, for example, VR might be useful not just in training people, but in various interventions, but in working with patients. For example, I've seen a study in pain control where you for burn patients, where depending on the VR environment or the AR environment, they've actually seemed to have had some success in reducing patient requests for palliation and analgesia. And so it seems to be really quite fertile scientifically as well. A few thoughts about that?
Yeah, so that's a very exciting area. Basically, your brain competes for cognitive attention with VR, because VR really sucks up all your attention, and you really don't feel where you are. In the pain experiment that you're mentioning, they actually put the patients in, if I recall correctly, in a cold environment, and it helps them and helps with pain. I think the number of, just the amount of things that we can do is with VR is we don't know half of it yet. I mean, the pain one is interesting, but with learning and behavioral sciences, I think there's going to be a lot of things happening there as well. They've also been able to cure lazy eye with VR by adjusting the light strength on each of the screens. So there are a few interesting things that just pop up every now and then that come to the radar.
So making a collection of those, keeping a list of those potentially interesting interventions, and our colleagues in behavioral science and health, maybe psychiatry, are exploring the potential utility of VR there for behavioral maladies, with, by the way, really interesting risks that we don't know how to disclose yet. And one of the challenges, as you point out, in addition, one of the practical challenges is, if I'm going to be a participant in your research, you have to tell me what the risks are. But if I've got a behavioral disorder, you may not be able to tell me what the risks are. And those risks, if they are realized, could be quite serious. There is one question so far, and maybe you and Janina can work on this. But suppose somebody wanted to become more involved at UM. There's the association, but what other resources can the UM community identify or hook up with in order to learn more about your work and contribute to it?
Well, the XR initiative is definitely a good place to start. Apply for
URL or a website we can share?
xr.miami.edu. I'll if Janina can type it in, that would be great.
xr.miami.edu is good.
Yeah. And then also the library has an XR room where you can check out headsets and you have content. It's on the second floor of Richter, and it's a great space that anyone can kind of get content. You can take your class to there, and no matter who you are, as long as you have access to the library, you can use it. So,
did that not? Nick may know. Nick, didn't that evolve from the Magic Leap initiative, or it still is that?
Yes, there was a room, but now I think that after COVID, I think everybody is trying to think about what's happening in that space over there.
No, it's the same space. It's been actually dedicated. There was some discussion about what it was going to be, and finally the library decided to keep it as an XR room. And it's no longer only Magic Leap. It has all the headsets available for checkout, and you can use them in the space or somewhere else. And they also have some high-end headsets that are already set up with the sensors that you can move around it. So, Nick was right. There was some discussion about it, but finally they just decided to kind of leave as is. So for the time being, it's safe.
Another example, by the way, of some, I mean, not to brag too much on iDisc, but when you've got a university-wide institute like this that's fostering those kinds of opportunities, the challenge is always how do we sustain them, and they will evolve into making sure that this opportunity is available in the future. The link, by the way, works. Click on it. It's a very, the xr.miami is a nice website. And also, by the way, not to be too sentimental, one of the things that the Media Data Scientist has been, I think, so far particularly successful in is bringing people together from all campuses. These technologies are agnostic as among your specialty. Last week, our colleague from the Department of English talked about text and text as data, and the transition to this just gives it a really nice sense of the scope of this. What next? Any other questions? I want to make sure that
yes. I have a question, actually, Kim, and I want a little bit your thoughts in terms of the VR and all of this. I think that it provides a little bit more immersive aspect. But what about the extended reality, where you can bring in the physical and the digital together, right? So where things are getting, in VR still, you as you said, still, given the state of the technology, we still realize that we're in a virtual space. So how would you think that is happening in the mixed reality, where you bring the physical and the digital together? And what some of the interesting aspects there?
So I think that's some of the most exciting stuff that's about to come. So while virtual reality is here now, I think that things like spatial computing, mixed reality, and augmented reality, well, not augmented reality, but mixed computing and spatial reality are, 5 years down the road. But it's very exciting. Like, I know IDIS does quite a bit on this about creating digital twins and photogrammetry and recreating the world around us. And being able to navigate the real world with an overlay of digital information, and it's coming. I didn't include too much about that because it's somewhat speculation on how it's going to look. I know that Apple is going to launch a device, they said in 2023, that's going to use this mixed reality technology. Like everybody else, I have no idea what it is, but it's going. This is really where I think things are going, and this is going to, augmented reality is going to be a lot more exciting than virtual reality. I also wanted to mention that we are always looking for collaborators in the creative computing group at iDisc, and if you're interested, just if you could just email me. I'm going to put my email at the chat at the end.
There is one question about some of the current limitations of XR technology. Can you elaborate on them and what's being done to work around constraints? In other words, what are the obstacles you're encountering and how are you managing them?
I mean, I think right now the obstacle is that this is a new technology. That the hardware is clunky. I think accessibility is a big issue, that not everybody has a headset, not everybody can afford a headset. The best headsets cost $12,000. This is not a technology that everybody can afford. But I know that at some point, this is going to replace laptops and computers. We're just going to put on our headset, a screen's going to appear, we're going to start typing, or we're going to start dictating, whatever's easier. but there's no reason for us to have a 13 or 15-inch screen in front of us that we carry around. It's much easier to carry around some sort of AR as devices, as Nick was mentioning, or a mixed reality devices, as Nick was mentioning, or simply just putting on VR goggles. But I think to answer the question, Isaac's question, one of the biggest limitations I find are haptics still. We could use better haptics. We're still only able to track hands and facial data. It would be nice to be able to track legs, feet, and be able to give back give feedback back to those parts of the bodies as well.
Your description of the future and getting rid of screens. I remember the guy from Men in Black saying, now I have to buy the White Album all over again. But how we interact with each other, and that's your work. It will include work, and it will include entertainment, and it will include interpersonal relationships. And so I was just a particular shout out that you did, that you have at least begun thinking a little bit about some of the ethical, legal, and social implications of that. We've learned during COVID that our interactions have, I seem to be looking at a bunch of people on a Zoom screen. What would this look like in an XR, VR, or AR world? And how will that change how we relate to each other?
So next,
and will that matter in ways that we're worried about?
So the Zoom screen is an interesting one. Next semester, I'm teaching a class with Bill Green and Dennis Hector from the School of Architecture. Bill Green's from Religion. And we're going to be teaching the entire class in VR. We got headsets for all the students. And we're going to get together around a Harkness table, which is this oval table that was designed for discussion. And we're going to try to host a class that way. There's several unknowns about hosting a class like that, especially because it's a long class. Will students be able to stay in a class for that long? How will they, how much will they retain, and things like that. But it's an exciting class to teach. The class is called Religion, Sacred Spaces, VR and AR, and Artificial Intelligence. And it really explores the intersection of these spaces.
There's a research opportunity, right? You have one class that way and none with one with exactly the same content without it. You see who remembers, who learns what in different ways. I mean, in terms of learning.
And also that would be interesting, actually, Kim, when you showed the goggles, basically the VR goggles, where they monitor from EGGs to, heart rates and things like that. And, and so that would be a very interesting, actually, even research project to figure out how people, pay attention, learn.
Yep.
Right.
Especially that's especially with the new HP Reverb. It has it does have a tool already in there to measure cognitive attention.
Well, so that goes to Dr. Eisenberg's question about the potential utility of using XR technology to reduce medical errors, especially if you can incorporate it. Already clinicians use various forms of things on their heads and their eyes. I mean, have you ever seen a surgeon with magnifying tools or safety glasses, eye shields, etc.? You might have a ready audience there to improve it. Well, split attention, inattention blindness, etc. could be quite fertile.
So I completely agree, and this really shows how we're going to have to evolve into a more interdisciplinary area, because to do this, we need people who understand computer vision. We need designers. We need computer programmers. We need doctors who understand the surgery. We need 3D designers. All of this is a very large interdisciplinary area that we have to show our students and even ourselves learn how to work in this way to basically create these new technologies and be part of it.
Those sound like really good, positive closing words. Professor Senaremas, anything to send us on our way before I mention the next event?
No,
right.
I think that we should finish with what Kim has just said. I think it doesn't take, it doesn't need anything more.
A punchy, forward-looking ending that sums things up beautifully. Kim, thank you so very much for a wonderful presentation. Our next event is going to be on the 16th of November. Luis Pestana is going to be presenting. Gina is going to make sure that everyone has this transmitted directly to the electrodes that we've already pre-implanted in everybody's head, and look forward to continuing success with this. Kim, thank you so very, very much for a wonderful presentation. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.